Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Josh.
And this is NFGeeks. Josh, thanks once again for coming on NFGeeks. Appreciate it.
No problem.
As always. All right, so we got a great set of episodes today. And the first one we're going to talk about is an idea that you want to talk about, and that is the personality types of lawmakers and people who are involved in that process. Types that they possibly are, types that they should be, or even types that they shouldn't be. Are there certain types that just shouldn't be involved in that process?
Right.
So why don't you start us off? What were your original thoughts? Where did this idea come from?
Well, I was just watching a lot of stories in the news lately, and how a lot of you could say judiciary rulings and things like that have been coming out, and I just decided started thinking, these rulings are coming out because of certain interpretations of laws, and then I was thinking laws should be made more specific, and I just started thinking I wonder what personality types goes involved in making laws and things like that. So that's kind of how it started.
Sure. All right. So there's two ways to looking at that. Then there's what types of types are going into the legal writing of laws, writing them out. Mm-hmm. And then who are the legislatures who are sort of thinking about them, debating them, coming up with them. Maybe not always coming up with them, but, actually putting it through the process.
Right.
So we're talking about lawyers and politicians, I think,
yeah,
in general. All right, so let's start with making the laws. What types do you think are actually involved in the actual writing of the laws in terms of lawyers or things like that?
I don't know. I think probably it would be the majority of who I think is actually writing them probably would be SJs, just because they're a majority type.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I was thinking the person who's actually probably typing up the bill, you know what I mean, to send to the legislature, has to be an ISTJ, because that is such a laborious and tedious task to do that. So that must be, I was thinking right off the top of my head, okay, ISTJ is probably the guy, section 1, paragraph 3, footnote L, what I mean?
Right.
That guy. All right, so I agree, SJs. Anywhere else would you see SJ, or any of the other SJs, do you think, are in the process somewhere? Or why do you say SJs?
Well, yeah, I said SJ because they're the most common, so I figured it'd be the most likely place for that person to land. And then also the fact that they are good at following their orders, they're good at doing tasks, so it just makes sense for them to be in that position.
Yeah, and in fact, now that you just said that,
they'd probably be the most likely to even want to do it.
Yes, because they are the ones most worried about it.
Right.
What are the rules? What are the laws? We have to make sure we have
procedures. It's got to be done right.
Right. If it's not going to be done right, don't do it at all.
Yeah.
I could see them being sort of wanting to do that. All right. Now, saying that though, then let's contemplate this: is that it can't be just totally SJs, because all the laws and the enforcement of them would turn fascist. You know what I mean? Completely draconian, it'd be terrible. So there has to be typological buffers going on. What types are involved in keeping it,
I think also, but a lot of the actual, the coming up with the idea for the laws, I think are a lot of NTs and NFs.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. What would be the difference then? What types of laws would NTs be interested in? And what types NFs? I have an idea in my head.
For some reason, an NT laws, to me, what comes to mind is zoning laws. Property lines, how that's decided. I feel a lot of
what is the procedure that decides if this is going to be a commercial zone?
Yeah,
that kind of thing. How do we determine?
That sounds like an NT law.
Yeah, actually it does. Mapping out the city, designing the city so you don't have like SimCity. In SimCity you can't have 17 blocks of commercial zones.
Right. Yeah, you break it down by grid.
Right. That does seem. I think NF laws are always those laws that are about, not necessarily about human rights, but about advocating for people, advocating for minorities. I think the people who wrote laws about women's issues were probably NFs.
Right.
thought about that. I think people who wrote laws or advocated for laws about the civil rights movement were NFs. The entire gay rights movement is probably being spearheaded by a bunch of NFs.
I was just going to say that. That was like the first thing that came to my mind.
That's right. So that's because that's a human issue. I think we care about human issues, people's feelings.
Right.
What does it feel like to be gay? Don't you understand it? No, seriously though, right? I know that's funny, but like that. All right, so then let's talk about SPs, because this is why I wanted to hold off. They don't
fit in. They don't do anything.
They just break the laws.
No, they're the ones that like, oh, let's filibuster this. They filibuster and break for holiday.
For fun.
For fun.
They're bored and they decide, All right, but I was actually thinking that SPs, I bet you find a lot of SPs in the Libertarian Tea Party people. Because those are the
That would
groups.
seem like a best SP fit. I think.
Yes, because it's the least amount of restrictions. We all have freedom. We all can act the way we want to act.
Like Ron Paul's an SP.
Yes, or a poster boy for SPs. I would love to do an analysis of how many SPs are in the Tea Party movement or just libertarians, in general.
I feel like it would be a large number of them.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think a lot of them would be really into it. Although, because I get these emails sometimes at NFGeeks, is that the sort of what some people consider to be the philosophical foundation of all this is Ayn Rand and her objectivism and all that, and I get emails from that because of the Scholarchy videos, and those are usually INTPs and NTs who are really into that libertarian Ayn Rand side of it, but the other types. So so people talking about it philosophically, I think, are NTs, and then the ones who are sort of living it are SPs. Although if there's an NF that does, I find that, and it's your favorite type, I find that a lot of INFPs sometimes end up in libertarianism. And that's because they have this thing about wanting to be free and want to fight the system and all that. So I do see a lot of INFPs.
That makes sense.
That go in there. All right, what other, all right, so that's in terms of the law. Let's talk about politicians, because they're on their side of it. Because politicians are lawmakers. I mean, we always see them as all these other things, crooks and whatever, but they're actually lawmakers, for better or for worse. Where do you see various lawmakers, or how do the types fit into lawmaking?
I think to have a good system, it should be balanced. There should be a lot of members.
So NF.
I think there should be a lot of members from all four types. To me, I think that it would be good. I think I'm kind of being biased, but I think it's and more, maybe if there has to be more of one group, I would like to see more NFs than the others. But I think that a balance of all four makes the most sense. I think, because it would make it so that way laws are fair for everyone. Everyone could live with it if it was a contribution from all four types going on. But I think a majority of our politicians, to me, I don't see a lot of them as NFs though, or even as NTs. I don't see a lot of them as NTs either. Yeah,
and in fact, I was just going to say that honestly, and the NTs are going to love this, we should have probably more NTs in there.
Yeah, I think there should be more NTs
to construct things in a more complex and logical way.
Right.
I don't think NTs. I think the problem is that NTs are probably great policymakers and creating legal systems, but they're bad at campaigning.
Yeah.
Unless they have this super awesome team around them that's teaching them line for line.
Yeah, you would need
an earpiece.
You would need a good NT legislator, but that's just being puppeted by a great team until they get elected.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Basically.
An entire huge committee for elections. So saying that, then, I think all right. I guess it's obvious that extroverts are probably more into politics.
Right. Because an extrovert, to be into politics, you kind of have to be into being in the limelight. You can't really be someone who's shy. The more of a ham you are, the better politician you're going to be, because you're going to eat it up and people are going to love it.
Yeah.
So I think with that being said, extroverts that are NFs can really dominate a political scene if they wanted to.
Yeah, I actually think out of all the NFs, there's probably a lot of ENFJs.
Yeah.
I would bet in the politics. Although, allegedly, and maybe we should talk about this a little hopefully we won't run out of time. Allegedly, a lot of people think that Bill Clinton was an ENFP. Now, I don't know if he was or he wasn't, but a lot of people seem to think that and Hillary's an INTJ. They seem to think she's an INTJ.
She seems like it.
Yeah, she does actually.
And he
seem
seems like it too, I think.
As an ENFP?
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is I always wonder, like, my God, I don't know if I could be president. Like, that would be so stressful. I mean, no, it's NFGeeks, but geez, this is just silliness. I have to say, though, this is so awful. As an ENFP, and I expect the other ENFPs to at least secretly have this in their head, I totally get how he fell into the Monica Lewinsky thing. I don't approve, but I like what process would lead you to go to that moment. I understand that. I could see myself in a very stressful, not sleeping, the Republicans are trying to kill me thing. Here's this kind of curvy, young, heavy chick around who's like flirting. Yeah, I could see totally falling into that. That's why we don't have interns here at
Zero interns.
Zero. Josh. A lot of males. You see that? There's a reason for that. But I could see, as an ENFP, I can see falling into that. Not doing it like, oh, this is a great decision, but like stressing out and doing something that stupid, yeah, I could absolutely see myself rolling down that hill. As opposed to other hills where like alcoholism or no, I don't see myself rolling down that hill.
But
like,
the intern hill?
The little chubby intern hill, yeah, I like a woman with curves, I could see that. Yeah, it's true. It's true, I do. So I can see that as Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton allegedly is an ENFP. All right.
Oh, I think Obama's an ENFJ.
Really? I actually think my first choice is ENFJ, my second choice is INFJ. But I'm pretty convinced he's an NFJ.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if he was like, ISFP or something. That would blow my mind.
Yeah.
It would mean I know nothing.
I would quit the show.
Yeah, exactly. It's time to cancel the show. It's time to go into a whole other talk show. Might as well just go into like astrology and,
Yeah, basically.
Forget talk about Naiji.
Naiji.
Just give up Myers-Briggs. All right, I agree that Obama is an NFJ. My first choice is ENFJ.
Yeah.
He's really thin, and a lot of INFJs I know are very thin, and that's why I kind of sometimes think, oh,
but he has a very strong ENFJ swagger.
Oh, you think so? Oh, this is
Absolutely.
Great. Where do you see the ENFJ swagger?
Just when he talks, like he has this thing about him, like when he's talking, he just gives you this look like. But he's talking while he's giving you that, and that's very like INFJ, because we'll be talking with our verbally, but we're talking with our eyes and with our head and with our hands all the time, and he does a lot of that. Like he just has like, and when he's walking, I feel like I walk like that too.
Yeah, he does walk with swagger. As he's walking up to the podium, like you ever see that, like when he announced that Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, when
was
he's
dead.
coming from the hall, he has like this this like strut, and it's very ENFJ.
Yeah.
About it, I think.
All right, we got a few minutes left, so I want to get your comments on this, and that is that it seems to me, though, getting back to campaigning, even though this isn't about making the laws, it seems that a lot of SPs would be very good at campaigning and very involved in the campaign process, how to be a campaigner, because it's all about marketing and reacting in the moment and things like that. And that tells me a lot of SPs probably become legislators. What do you think?
I think that would make more sense as SPs being highly ranked in the campaign team. Like a campaign manager, like being ahead of running the campaign team. I think that would make more sense for an SP to be involved in politically.
Sure.
Like the guy, like if I want to run for president, I would call King SP to run my campaign and help me. Like that's what I think would be the role, like the best role for an SP to be in politically.
Yeah, I agree. And they probably are, I'll bet you, SPs in the whole marketing, campaigning, commercial thing, because you have to be able to sort of spin on a dime.
Right.
In order to
seize opportunities.
Right. Preemptive strike with a negative ad and make sure, you're going to go talk to this group, but now you better go talk to that group and change the appointment, but somehow slick it over.
Yeah.
It sounds SPs. But that makes me think that SPs also become politicians, because as the individual, you have to be able to do all that too. So I bet you there's a lot of SP politicians who are able to maneuver and do that.
It's likely.
Yeah. I would assume ESTP. That would be my first choice for the SP politician. All right, we've got about a minute and a half left. So anything else you want to add in to this while we still got a little time left?
I think that it would be interesting to me if it was kind of more, if Myers-Briggs became more like pop cultured, and that like it was actually mentioned in campaigns. Like you could actually find out, and then you could vote by Myers-Briggs type.
Oh, that's great.
Instead of like political party.
That's right. In fact, they would be the real political parties.
Yeah.
Right.
You'd be like, oh, what party are you in? I'm in an NF.
That's right.
NF
Instead
party.
of, all right, Democrats have a donkey, we'd have a unicorn.
Yeah.
The NF unicorn, you know. Vote unicorn. You know. Do you like rainbows? Who doesn't like rainbows?
Glitter.
That's right. And magic.
Yeah.
You know,
We
exactly. Win. Yes. And part of the goal of NFGeeks is to do that. Not necessarily politically, but obviously considering we're raising the production value here, it's to get this sort of language out on a larger scale to that. So that's right in line with what we're doing. All right. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thank you very much, Josh, and hopefully you'll be on again. Actually, we'll be in 5 minutes. So great. Thank you, Josh. Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Josh.
And this is NFGeeks. Josh, once again, thank you for being on NFGeeks. For this episode, we're going to kind of get into the George Zimmerman case. And a lot of videos have been made about this. I've been sort of checking them out on YouTube. And so I don't know, I figured NFGeeks we'd add ours. And I want to talk about it in terms of typology, because I think there's some interesting typology stuff going on with this. So why don't you start us off? Anything you want to say right off the top about this?
No, let's just get into it.
Just get into it?
Yeah,
you want to get into it? All right. All right, so the first thing, and I was kind of doing this in the forum, is I was trying to speculate what is Zimmerman's type? Like, what's his MBTI type? And so here's how I thought about it, and you can and put in your 2 cents. All right, the first one is I think he's a feeler and not a thinker, because he was pretty irrational in the moment in acting.
Okay.
All right, any thoughts to that?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I don't think he's a judger. I think he's a perceiver, because perceiving is kind of more impulsive and spontaneous. I think if he was a judger, it would have been more like Batman. He'd have it all planned out.
But I disagree. I think he's a judger because...
Why?
Because I think he's a judger because he was making a presumption and based on what he thinks, how he thinks.
Oh, that's interesting.
He made a judgment and he presumed something about someone and then took his action.
All right,
so I actually think he's a J.
All right, that's fascinating then. All right, so we have F, possibly P or J.
Okay.
All right, you're going with J because he made a judgment. I'm going to go with P because it was spontaneous, because he sort of did it off the top. All right, I don't think he's an intuitive. I don't think he's an N.
I think he's an S too.
Yes, I also think he's an S. And I think he's an I.
Me too.
I think he's introverted. All right, so then that leaves us with either he's an ISFP or an ISFJ.
Right.
Now, I actually did think ISFJ in my thinking of this. I mean, I leaned towards ISFP, obviously, but I did think ISFJ because ISFJs are very sort of first responders, okay? When something happens, they freak out and they immediately go and do something. My sister's an ISFJ, and she does that. She just, she's off and running. The reason why I didn't go with that is my sister I'm thinking of my sister. She has pretty good judgment. I don't see her running after an African-American guy in the middle of the night with a gun. It doesn't seem my sister's style.
Right.
You know what I mean? I could see her like reacting though.
But your sister's also raised in Massachusetts and probably not a racist. So
no, she actually lives in the Upper East Side.
Oh, yeah.
of New York. So yeah, she's existing in this other cultural realm.
Yes.
I admit to that. All right, so ISFJ or ISFP. That's a good way to start.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other thoughts about that type or SJs? Like, let's think about SJ. How do you see them as an SJ, or how do you see him as an SJ?
I think it was because, see, in my mind, when I picture what he did, I felt like he thought that he had some type of, like he was kind of following a protocol almost. He was like, he saw him, thought it was suspicious, figured it was the right decision to follow him, by his claims felt threatened, took an action, and had no regrets about it. And even when he gave interviews afterwards, and they said, would you do anything differently? Do you have any regrets? And he's completely convinced that it was 100% the right thing. He has no regrets. He wouldn't do anything different. Not a thing. He feel like he followed a process. He came to the right conclusion.
Wow, that's interesting.
He probably felt vindicated because obviously he's not in jail right now. And so, to me, that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great analysis. That's really great. You know, because I was thinking more of an SP thing, like, you know, he got out of it, he weaseled out of it, you know, the way SPs can tactically kind of maneuver.
Yeah, see, you're thinking of it as kind
But
of
maybe I'll
like
say about the lawyers.
he just did something and then like he's just laid back and got away with it. But
Yeah.
but because of how he has such a conviction about how he did it, I think there's more to it.
I definitely think he was an F. He looked genuinely distressed through the whole process, like he was about to cry.
Yeah, because
he looked emotionally.
Because he, like everybody else in America, thought he was going to jail.
Yeah,
that's why.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but I don't know, a T, like I could see an ISTP just sort of being deadpan. They wouldn't be, you know,
right.
They'd be serious, but they wouldn't be necessarily crying.
Right.
All right, so I had this other thought, and I want you to comment on. You're gonna love this. Is that I thought to myself, okay, he's not an NF. He can't be an NF. He can't be an NT either, because he would have way plotted this out a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have even got arrested.
Right, exactly. Would have escaped. Yeah. So that's if he was an NT. But he's not an NF, because an NF, I think, would have assessed the situation correctly about what's going on with Trayvon Martin and whether he was really doing something bad, good, indifferent. You know what I mean? Be able to assess it correctly.
Plus, I think if an NF was to see something, even if they thought he was doing something suspicious, if it was an NF, they're like, well, he's leaving me alone, so I'm just going to get out of here and go home.
Exactly.
They would be like, oh.
Yeah, no, that's true. An NF is not going to jump out of the car.
They're like, well, he's not trying to rob me, so I'm getting out of here.
Right.
Like,
I mean, we're already petrified.
Right.
In the car, it's running. We're not even got the brakes on. We're already ready to escape. All right, but I had an incident happen before. The incident may sound bad. Something happened with Noah and I that before all this, and it made me think about this in terms of Zimmerman, and that is NF's picking it up right. So Noah and I were, and Noah, I hope you remember this. This wasn't too long ago. It was a couple of days ago, maybe a couple of weeks. Noah and I were coming home from somewhere. I don't know where, maybe even here. But we were coming home and we're parking the car. And you and I live in a multi-ethnic, multiracial place. You know what I mean? We're not, we don't live in the middle of white America.
Yeah.
you know, we don't. So I'm pulling into a spot, and one of my neighbors, who I never talked to, this African-American guy, starts coming over to the car. Now, I've seen him around a little bit, but I've never talked to him. We don't talk to neighbors in New England. I don't know if people realize that.
Yeah.
That's bad. Don't talk to your neighbors. But so he starts coming over, and he's probably like my age, maybe a little younger, maybe between 30 and 40. And it's hot out, so he's wearing like a wife beater and shorts, and I've never seen this guy. And he comes across the front of my car, and he comes up to my window, and he just asks, "Is your name George?" And I said, "No," and he walked away. Now, Noah, so we talked about this right afterward. Now, Noah, being SJ, seeing this guy come over, went into SJ mode. Who is this guy? What does he want? I've never seen him before. He's coming to the car. Noah was totally. Whereas, as soon as he started walking, I understood exactly what was going on. I even said this right after I said this happened. I knew he was going to come over and just ask a question that I had no answer to. You know what I mean? Like,
I completely understand what you're saying, because I can always kind of tell, like, because I can tell by someone's body language almost.
Yes.
You can tell, like, they're usually like relaxed. They're kind of walking to you with like a kind of a little bit of already a kind of a question mark on their face.
Yeah.
And you can tell they're very, like, they're laid back, so they're not like in an aggressive, like, attacking. They don't want something from you, or they don't want to tell you anything. They're kind of like coming to you almost in complete P mode. Like, perceiver, they're going to ask you something. Like, you can tell they're going to ask you something.
Yeah, exactly. It was totally right. And that's why I was totally NF. I wasn't, even though I never talked to this guy, I wasn't scared. I just watched him.
I even preemptively rolled my window down.
Yeah, I know.
Because I can tell they're going to come and ask me something. So I'm just.
I might have done that. I don't remember. But right. And that made me think, now thinking about this case, is that if an NF was in the car, I think they would have been able to assess. They wouldn't be like, oh, he's on drugs. They'd know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They know he would be. All right. So now we'll have to find a way of getting this back to typology. But I had a thought about this. There must be something typological about this. Is that because it's locally related. I was contemplating this whole case, and I thought to myself, you know what? The Lizzie Bordens always get off. You know what I mean? Now, Lizzie Borden is for those of you who don't know, is the axe murderess who murdered her parents in the early 1890s.
40 whacks, gave her father 41.
Yeah, exactly. And it was buried. Her grave was right near where I grew up. We can go there if you like. See her grave, the murderer's grave. But she got off.
Right.
Okay, she got off. And there's always somebody who commits some kind of murder and gets off. You know, I mean, O.J. Simpson was one, and now Zimmerman was one. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of, you know, what are the commonalities in type amongst these people?
Like
if
you're
any?
wondering if all the killers that get off are the same type?
Yeah, right. Or if there's something of one part of the type. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Are they all introverts? Is that why they get off? And you know, the OJ wasn't an introvert.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, OJ's not an introvert.
Yeah.
So.
OJ,
Maybe he's an SJ though.
really? See, I think he's an SP because of his sports, his sports abilities, and also the murder was his murder that he committed was very.
It was passionate murder.
Yes, and very like in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't a planned out. I think judges would plan out their murders. Do you think?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a
Maybe.
little bit plan out their murders.
Not as good as an NT, but I mean, if they were an NTJ, then
Yes. Well, the murders, there's two types of murders that NTs, I think, plot. One is the one where they get away and no one ever finds them. And the other is a mass murder plot.
And everyone knows they live forever.
Right, because it was so well constructed that, you know, they
Like they go
past the-
into the How You Commit Murders for Dummies book that you get.
Yes, and there's all this technical aspect. They shut off alarms,
Yeah,
you know, power outages. And,
good stuff.
yeah, exactly. All right, so the last few minutes about this, then, let's talk about the verdict, and you know, and talk about as the types that we are, I guess, how what we think. So, what do you think of the verdict? What do you think it should be?
Well, I think like a lot of people, I think that it was wrong. I think that to me, in my opinion, I don't think any murders is justifiable. You know, I don't believe in anyone taking anyone's life. Personally, like whether it's in self-defense or in anything, I don't believe. But then again, because I feel that way, I don't feel like there's a need for self-defense to exist because there's no need for someone to attack. You know what I mean? So personally, I believe murder in any fashion is wrong. But I think his in particular, I think like a lot of people think that, you know, it was just some kid walking somewhere. He was unarmed. You know what I mean? So I don't think that it was the right conclusion was reached. You know, I think he should be in jail. But you know, too, I have like an interesting thought process because to me the reason why I got so much attention was because he was a kid, you know what I mean? And then there's the whole racial component, and there's the fact that a lot of people feel like it was wrong. So that's why I got attention, but I just feel like that's just one case. I mean, how many like racist things happen throughout the country every year? How many times are people murdered throughout the country every year? Like, I'm sure there's a huge statistic of women that are murdered that no one talks about.
Of course.
Like, you know, and I saw something interesting online too, where someone was like, "Yeah, this is great that we're mad about the Trayvon case, but we should be mad about all the black-on-black crime that happens throughout the year, every day in this country." And I think that's an important thing to think about too. Is be mad about this, but be mad about everything else too.
You know, what was interesting in your response is that it was a very ENFJ response in that it was all about values and human values and how we should be treating each other. You know, everything you just said was classic ENFJ values. That's great. And also made me think of myself because I take an ENFP point of view is that why I also agree that it's bad. Basically, what Florida did is like you could be a vigilante.
Yeah.
You could be Batman. You could be
Batman.
Deathwish. Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead, put on your cape.
And two, it was like I seen another case where, all right, he killed someone and got off, but there was a woman who fired warning shots and got jail time because she fired her gun. Well, he fired his gun too. Like, she fired her gun at the sky. Why is she in jail for I forgot how long it was, like 10 to 20 years or something like that.
Well, that's
for discharging her firearm, but you know, this guy's out free for killing someone.
And I think that, and one of the things why I think it's manslaughter and guilty, I think from the ENFP point of view, which is that there's no way he could have known, unless he was an ENFP, there's no way he could have known what was Trayvon actually doing. Like, was he on drugs? Was he there? There's no way for him to know. So if he's running out there, he's creating this situation.
Yeah.
You can't possibly know.
You're just putting
what's inside this guy's head.
Yeah, you're just projecting something onto him and just taking action.
And created the situation.
Right.
You know. All right, we got about 30 seconds. Any last thing you want to say about it?
Yeah, I think there was something that his brother said about like he's free, he's out free, but he's not really a free man.
Yes,
But-
and that's why I brought up Lizzie Borden. Same thing happened to her.
But
Go
I
ahead.
think that, you know, if you're worried about everyone, you know, kind of being on top of you, you should probably think twice before you kill someone.
Well, there you
That's
go.
kinda brought it on
That's
yourself,
advice
dude.
from the ENFJ, Josh. That's great. What a good way to end. All right, Josh, thank you very much, as always.
Yep.
All right.